The smell of decay spread quietly through the wooden floors of the house, a stench that lingered for weeks while the neighbors looked away. No one could place its origin, but one person knew exactly where it came from: the sister. Because in her room, sealed tight inside a wooden box, her brother waited. He was not alive in the way most imagine, but neither was he completely gone. He existed in that dreadful space between life and death, a secret she guarded with unsettling devotion. The neighbors had long whispered about the strange girl, who rarely stepped outside. They saw her in the dead of night, carrying small trays of food upstairs, but no one ever came down. Some thought she was nursing an ill relative. Others believed she was hiding something far darker. The truth was far worse than any rumor dared to suggest. When authorities finally forced their way into the locked room, their eyes fixed on the box. Heavy, chained, its surface scarred by desperate fingernails. What they uncovered inside would forever scar the town's memory. The question remained: why would a sister keep her brother in a box? And how long had the horror been festering within those walls? The town was small, quiet, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names. Streets lined with weathered houses, children playing under fading street lamps, neighbors gathering on porches as dusk settled in. On the surface, life moved with ordinary rhythm, nothing out of place, nothing worth suspicion. Among these families lived the sister and her brother. Their parents had passed years earlier, leaving the two bound together in grief and fragile dependence. To the community they seemed inseparable, a loyal pair surviving hardship the only way they knew how: by clinging to each other. The sister was polite, though distant, her pale face rarely breaking into a smile. The brother, frail and withdrawn, was seen less often, always described as sickly and weak. Some neighbors assumed he remained bedridden, too fragile to walk the streets. Yet the house always looked intact, the windows covered, the curtains drawn. People accepted it as privacy. They didn't pry. But there was something unsettling, an unspoken heaviness surrounding the siblings. A sense that grief had twisted into something stranger, something no one could quite put words to. What no one realized was that behind those drawn curtains, a secret was growing darker with each passing night. At first glance, their lives carried the illusion of normalcy. The sister was seen buying groceries at the corner store, always choosing the same items: bread, milk, canned soup, and sometimes raw meat, wrapped in brown paper. She spoke softly, avoided eye contact, and left quickly, but her routine never wavered. Neighbors assumed she was simply shy, a quiet girl burdened with the role of caregiver. The brother, however, remained a mystery. In the early years, he had been spotted now and then, thin and pale, walking slowly beside his sister. But with time, those sightings faded, until his presence became a memory rather than a reality. Whispers began to spread. Was he bedridden? Was he gone? Still no one asked. The sister always reassured them with a distant smile. He's resting. He's fine. The words never changed. But behind that rehearsed calm, a strange unease lingered. Sometimes, neighbors swore they heard faint noises at night, scraping sounds, muffled thuds, as if something heavy was shifting across the floor. They dismissed it as imagination, the creaks of an old house. But those who listened closely knew better. The sister's life looked ordinary on the outside, but inside, something unnatural was beginning to take shape. The first signs of something deeply wrong came quietly. Neighbors walking home at night began to hear strange sounds spilling from the sister's house. A dragging noise, a thump. Sometimes what sounded like muffled cries quickly smothered into silence. At first, people convinced themselves it was the television, or perhaps the house settling with age. But then came the smell, a faint sourness in the air, drifting from her windows when the wind was low. The sister brushed it off, telling curious neighbors it was a plumbing problem or spoiled food. Yet her eyes told another story, wide, frantic, never quite meeting theirs. Children in the area began to whisper about the house. They swore they saw shadows moving across the upstairs windows at odd hours. Some even claimed they heard scratching, like fingernails clawing against wood. A few parents grew uneasy, but their concerns never grew into action. After all, the sister was quiet, polite, never openly cruel. No one wanted to accuse her of something unthinkable. But within those shuttered walls, the truth was festering. Every sound, every smell, every restless shadow pointed towards something terrible, something that was not going away. And the wooden box was waiting. It was a night marked by silence, the kind that feels heavy, unnatural, and suffocating. The sister moved through her darkened home with deliberate steps, carrying a lantern that cast long, distorted shadows across the walls. In the center of her room stood the box, large, wooden, chained. She bent low, pressing her ear against its surface, listening to the faint sound within. A scratching, a groan. Her lips trembled as she whispered to it, her voice shaking but oddly tender, as though she were comforting a restless child. Hours passed with her circling the box, unlocking it just enough to slip a plate of food inside, then chaining it tight again. But that night, something shifted. The sounds from within were louder, more violent. Neighbors later recalled hearing a dull thudding that rattled through the walls. And then came a cry, a sound so sharp and guttural that it tore through the silence of the street. Someone called the police. When officers arrived, the house was locked, curtains drawn, no answer to their knocks. But they forced their way in. Upstairs, the stench was overwhelming, and at the center of the room, the chained box waited. What they found inside defied belief. The officers who entered that room would never forget what they saw. The box was pried open, chains cut with heavy tools, and the stench that escaped clung to their uniforms for days. Inside lay the brother, emaciated, his skin pale and stretched, his eyes sunken, yet still faintly open. He was alive, but barely. His body trembled with each shallow breath, as though clinging to existence by sheer force of will. Shock spread through the town overnight. How long had he been there? Why had no one intervened? The sister was taken into custody, her face a mask of calm detachment, as though she couldn't understand the chaos unfolding around her. When questioned, her words unsettled even the most hardened investigators. She claimed she was protecting him, that the world outside wanted to hurt him, that only the box could keep him safe. Diaries found in the house revealed her descent into obsession, page after page describing her belief that her brother could not survive outside her care. The community reeled, unable to reconcile the polite, quiet girl they thought they knew with the horror hidden behind her walls. Yet even as the truth surfaced, one question lingered. Was this cruelty or love twisted into madness? The case left behind more questions than answers. The brother, though rescued, never spoke publicly about what happened inside the box. Some said he refused to. Others claimed he couldn't. His silence only deepened the mystery. The sister, meanwhile, never broke from her story. She insisted the box was protection, that it kept her brother alive, that without it he would vanish. In court, her face was blank, her voice steady, as if she truly believed every word she said. The jury saw only madness, but psychologists debated whether it was delusion or something darker. An obsession that blurred the line between love and control. The house, abandoned after the trial, still stands at the edge of town. Curtains rotted, windows shattered, yet the upstairs room remains locked, the floorboards still scarred where the box once sat. Locals whisper that some nights, faint scratching sounds can still be heard inside, though the box is gone. Was it madness that drove her? Or did she know something about her brother that no one else dared to believe? The truth remains sealed in silence, leaving one haunting question. When love becomes a prison, how far will someone go to keep it locked away?